You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello everyone, thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this. Victoria, you are up first.
All right, so I'm kicking things off this week with one of the all-time strangest mammals. I think I may have gotten myself in trouble here because there are really too many things to talk about in the amount of time we have. So imagine an ant's nest, but it is filled with pale, wrinkled, blind, buck-toothed.
Oh, I know what this is.
Hairless rodents.
Are you doing naked mole
Hairless,
rat?
except, yes, it's the naked mole rat.
Oh, the naked mole
You
rat.
get the prize
Lovely.
this week, Rachel. Yes.
I mean, as soon as you said hairless and blind, all I could picture was Rufus from Kim Possible.
She was all in, right? All right, let's learn all about the naked mole rat. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, they're hairless, except they have these like long, wispy white hairs all over their bodies, sort of like your great uncle who forgets to trim his ears.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, it is a rodent, so it's closer to a rat than to a mole. It's actually closer to like a porcupine or a guinea pig within the rodents than rats and mice are.
That's weird.
They're about, yeah.
Wait, porcupine or guinea pig?
Yeah, or I guess apparently pretty much
I just
any
don't picture
rodent.
a porcupine and a guinea pig as being that similar. But
That's so
a whole other
different.
episode right there.
Dude,
That's
they're all
very
rodents.
different. That's
Right,
true.
right.
I feel like we all forget that rodents is an order rather than a family, and then it goes down to species. So everybody always rodent is a much bigger group than people think it is.
Yeah. You got your capybaras to your mice to your kangaroo rats to your porcupines and your beavers.
All right, tell us more.
So they're on the smaller side. They're about the size of a mouse, most of them. And I'm just going to say up front, these animals have a major PR problem. I mean, you start with the name. That is not attractive. Naked mole rat. And the appearance is only making that worse. But they have so many unique things around them. And also they're very popular as a lab animal. So, they're getting some love. They're native from science. They're native to the Horn of Africa. They live in dry grasslands, and they basically do have like an ant's nest. It's a very apt comparison in this case because, first, really strange thing about them, they are the only eusocial mammal. That means like they live in a colony. There's one other kind of mole rat that also does this, but just like ants or bees, they have a queen that is the one that has all the babies. She has one to three guys that are breeding with her, and everybody else in the colony is a worker. And they are hormonally suppressed, so they can't have babies. And they're just doing all the dirty work.
Right. Well, it sounds like the queen is having a great time.
I guess it does depend how you define dirty work, I guess.
Well, so
we don't need to go there.
They're in dirt.
They are in the dirt. So
there you go.
It is literally dirty work. They're caring for the pups and for the queen, who, by the way, is larger than the others, just like a queen bee. They're building tunnels. They're defending the colony. Also, they're feeding the pups. This is the scientific term, fecal pap.
Oh, I know what that is.
lovely.
That is a
lovely.
time. Oh, gross.
Look at that. We're about 3 minutes into the episode and we're already into fecal material. That's a new record there.
Yeah.
Is it though? We're naturalists.
It's all about poop, really.
It really is. It's all about poop.
Okay, next weird fact. They are the only mammal.
Nice one. Put it in the list. Mammal. That's a new one.
There it is.
That does go on the list. That is ectothermic. That's cold-blooded. So unlike you, me, and every other mammal, they don't keep an internal body temperature that's the same. If they are getting too hot, they go down lower in the colony. If they're getting too cold, they go up close to the surface where it's hot. That is really strange for a mammal.
Yeah, I thought that was a defining feature of a mammal was that they were all endotherms.
Nature laughs
We're
at your
all-
categories.
I should have
Since
known.
when has nature followed nice prescriptive boxes for things? That's not what it does.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot about that briefly. Silly me.
Also, they live underground. Their nests are basically sealed, so they have a very low oxygen environment, which they are really adapted to. They can survive up to 5 hours, at least 5 hours, in air that contains only 5% oxygen. For comparison,
Whoa.
yeah, humans start having problems if the oxygen level goes below 19.5%, and we cannot survive at all if it's lower than 6%. So these guys they have really good hemoglobin.
They're leaving us in the dust.
Yes.
Man, where can I get some of that good hemoglobin?
Naked
That's
mole
a great
rats.
question.
Your
Naked
local
mole
lab.
rats. I got to get my transfusion, yeah.
I don't know
Keep
if
me
we're
young.
compatible, Kirk, for that.
Probably not, no.
Okay, related to this, scientists think they are insensitive to pain. Their skin doesn't have neurotransmitters to feel pain from acid or capsaicin, which is the chili pepper stuff.
Does this explain why they're such popular lab animals?
Yeah, right.
'Cause
Probably,
that's
yeah.
kind of sad.
That might. Oh,
Poor naked mole rat.
yeah. So scientists think that the low oxygen environment, because it causes like excess carbon dioxide in their blood, that makes their blood acidic. So they don't want to be screaming in pain all the time from that.
That's
Go
fair.
figure.
Yeah, totally fair.
Also, they
It's
don't do
legit.
like, you know how like dogs and people and all the animals are always scratching themselves?
Right.
They don't do
I
that.
just did myself.
You're going to
yeah.
make me
don't
itch
itch.
here. They don't
I know.
itch.
Now it's like I feel like I have lice because you said that.
Well, they don't have
Congrats,
lice
everyone,
because
for
they don't have
itching.
hair, right? That must be the way it works.
Must be, yeah. Lucky them.
I wonder if their
Okay.
skin is more sensitive to like their claws, because if they're digging in the dirt and everything, like they must have like pretty sharp or pretty like distinct claws. So I mean, if you scratch with those, that would hurt.
I think they mostly dig it with their teeth, actually.
No, see, it wouldn't
What?
hurt, Rachel, because they don't feel pain.
Oh, right, clearly.
I could be wrong on that. That wasn't in my research. But just looking at all the pictures, the claws were not very prominent, and the teeth are extremely prominent.
Okay.
Yeah. I have 2 more weird facts to go.
All right, let's do it.
All right. They're highly resistant to cancer. This may be one of the main reasons why they're popular lab animals. Only 2 mole rats have ever been found to have a tumor, and those were ones that were living in a lab in a high oxygen environment. And so scientists think that like the low oxygen may be somehow protective, one of the things that's protective against cancer for them, among other things. And perhaps related to this, they also live really long for a rodent. So if you think about a rodent the size of a mouse, how long would you guess it would live?
Is it being fed
Oh,
to a snake
boy.
or an owl?
I mean, those
I'm going to go
are
with no.
snakes are their main predators, but we're going to go with no, just like in the normal way of
Just
things.
natural life, but
Yeah.
just not long. I mean,
Yeah.
a year or something.
Most rodents, I think their longest lifespan is like maybe 2 years.
Yeah, so mice in a protected environment like pet mice or lab mice, assuming they're not getting killed, will live up to like 2 to 3 years. These guys live up to 32 years.
What?
What?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, naked mole rat infusions. This is the future, people.
It is.
A naked mole rat has lived longer than I have been on this earth. That's crazy.
Many of them have.
A lot of them have. Jeez. That's crazy.
Yeah. So as long as you don't mind turning into something that looks like a naked mole rat infusions are the wave of the future for longevity.
Huh.
Amazing.
And that is all I have for today.
Thank you, Victoria.
My mind is blown right now. I don't know how to take any of that information.
Well, Rachel, you better be, resting up. I'm going to go second after this short break, and you got to be ready to wrap things up and get your mind unblown and ready to present. We're going to take a short break. Kirk here with a quick note. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It helps other lovers of the strange find our show. You can also find and follow us on social media. Search for Strange by Nature Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or come visit us at strangebynaturepodcast.com. We'll see you there. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back, and it's time for me to throw some information at you. I want to talk about an amazing woman named Marjorie Courtenay Latimer. You heard of her?
No.
Stunned silence. Awesome. Marjorie was the curator of the East London Museum in not London, but South Africa, because that makes sense.
Yep.
She was an avid collector of just everything in nature, huge naturalist. And one of the things she did, because she was near the coast, is she befriended local fishermen and made it known that she was interested in anything interesting that they caught. Now, that paid off on December 22nd, 1938, because she got a phone call from this captain she knew who said he had found a strange fish. And he set it aside and told everybody, no touching. This is for her. I don't want anything to mess around with this. So she gets there, and this is a quote from her. She says, "I picked away at the layers of slime to reveal the most beautiful fish I had ever seen." She said it was 5 feet long, a pale mauvey blue with faint flecks of whitish spots. It had iridescent silver blue-green sheen all over. It was covered in hard scales and had 4 limb-like fins and a strange puppy dog tail. Now, I do have to interject here. I've seen a picture of this specimen, and she is nuts if she thinks it looks like a puppy dog tail. This would be the most freakish looking puppy on the face of the planet.
I was about to say, I'm sorry.
Ignore that part. I don't know what she was.
How would you describe the tail?
Especially if it came out of the ocean with fishermen.
Yeah, it's I think it looks like like a fan used by some sort of demon in a horror film. That's what the tail looks like. Puppy dog is not the correct description.
Well, that's terrifying.
She recognizes that this is something special she's never seen before, and she's like, maybe this is something new. So how does she get it back to the museum? Of course, she hails a taxi, which with a 5-foot-long, stinking, unrefrigerated fish, outstanding. She gets back to the museum, looks through all her books, and discovers that she cannot find this fish in any of her books on fish. So she's oh my gosh, maybe it's new, right? But
did she pay the taxi driver well? Because that is a smell.
That was not in my information. I
hope he got a really
good tip.
tip.
There was a good tip involved. So she doesn't have any way to preserve this. The museum's just not set up for this. So she's trying to figure out what to do. At one point, she actually contacts the local morgue and asks them if they would help her preserve, I assume, embalm this fish, and they said, no way, go away.
That's fair.
And so she finally had to give up, and she talked to a taxidermist to try to preserve this. At the same time, she tried to phone up a friend of hers who worked at Rhodes University, who's an ichthyologist named J.L.B. Smith. It was Christmas time, though, so he was away, and she was like, well, it's going to rot. What am I going to do? So she had this taxidermist gut it and preserve the skin and stuff it, basically, right?
Okay, but here's the other question here.
Yeah.
Photography was a thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, she wanted to preserve she may have taken pictures, but she wanted to preserve the actual specimen too, because that's what you do in science is you want to preserve the actual, the thing, right?
Right.
And she was like, maybe this is new. This is exciting. Well, Smith finally, her friend finally hears about this, and he scoots down there, in February, a couple months later of 1939, and he was blown away when he saw this fish. And here's his quote. He said, "There was not a shadow of a doubt," he said, "it could have been one of those creatures of 200 million years ago come to life."
Oh, wait. Is this the coelacanth?
Yes, we're talking about the coelacanth,
you
guys.
Okay, I had no idea that's where you were going with that.
So we got to back up.
I thought maybe earlier,
and we got to talk about what a coelacanth is. Coelacanths are fishes. They're from 400 million years ago.
That's insane.
Is when we first find them in the fossil record. They are from the Devonian. And if you don't know about the Devonian, it's known as the Age of Fishes. Mm-hmm. This is way before dinosaurs. This is when plants were just starting to come onto land. the first plants, right? So
Right.
we're not even two like land animals hardly at all. Maybe some of these first fish were starting to kind of experimentally crawl out of the water. Actually, the coelacanth and the lungfish, which it's related to, are thought to be the first animals that came on land, the tetrapods.
Right.
And so this was amazing because this was 400 million years ago, and these are incredibly successful animals. They are found throughout the fossil record, throughout the dinosaur period too. Dinosaurs came about 200 million years after the coelacanth, and dinosaurs first came about 200 million years after when we are. So the amount of time between when us and the dinosaurs started is half of the amount of time to when the coelacanths first started out. They're actually not related to the ray-finned fishes that we think of today. There's about 30 million species of fish on Earth. 99% of those fish are the ray-finned fishes.
Yeah, this
and
is
the
a
coelacanths,
lobe-finned, right?
yeah, they're not even part of that group. So if you picture a fish, this is a totally different kind of thing. Okay.
Coelacanths are crazy.
So other than
Yeah.
them, the coelacanths and the lungfish, are they related to anything else living?
Not really that I know of. I mean, there may be some other really obscure like type of lungfish and stuff, but we still have lungfish today. But coelacanths were thought to be extinct because at the end of the late Cretaceous time period, which is when we think about
The C2
sort of the classic
barrier, right?
Yeah, so it's when like sort of the the comet or whatever came down and wiped out most life on Earth. They disappear in the fossil record, and we're like, oh, so they're all gone. 65 million years ago, they went extinct. Except all of a sudden here, Marjorie finds one at this essentially fish market, and suddenly they're back from extinction. And this is sort of where the term living fossil comes from. It's this idea that there's only one member of a once large family is still alive. We say that is a living fossil. It's the only remaining example of a line that has otherwise died out. One of the little cool asides on this, when the official description of this species of coelacanths, I do have to say this is a species of coelacanth. It's not, coelacanth is not just one type. It's a taxa. And so this one has actually ended up being described by J.L.B. Smith, and he named it after his friend who discovered it. He named it after Marjorie. So the genus is Latimeria after Marjorie, which is a pretty awesome honor. Now that
is
absolutely
that term,
a
though,
goal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Life goal right there. That term, though, living fossil, can no longer be used
What?
for that. Nope. Can't, because it's not the only one.
Says who?
It's not the only one, you guys. So the coelacanth I'm talking about was found off the coastal waters of South Africa, also like the Comoro Islands, Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar. We should probably be calling that, though, the West Indian Ocean coelacanth, because scientists found some more of them. In 1999, the Indonesian coelacanth was described by science in Indonesia. And I say described by and not discovered, because like a lot of species, the local fishermen knew about it all along.
Of course.
They're like, oh yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
They call it the Raja Laut, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but it means king of the sea. There was a guy named Mark Erdman who was a marine biologist who happened to be on his honeymoon in Indonesia and was going to like a fish market and was like, that's a coelacanth. What is a coelacanth doing here in Indonesia? And he was like, something's different. The coloration was a little different, but it was unmistakably a coelacanth. And he was not in the position on his honeymoon to purchase, 6 foot long fish.
I imagine
so
his new spouse was very much, no.
That's
walk
not
away.
what you do on a honeymoon. So he took photos and sent them to some other scientists, and they were like, you got to get a hold of one of those. So he actually went back a few months later to try to get one of these fish. He talked to all the fishermen, and it took many months, but that summer, one of the fishermen did bring in another one of these coelacanths, and they've now found a lot of them, although they're pretty endangered, so there's not a ton of them, but we now know that they live about 150 meters down under the water, and they are... Yeah, so deep, cold water. And they live in essentially caves on the rock faces of like subterranean, or not subterranean, underwater. They live in these underwater, rock cliffs that have caves in them is where they're hanging out.
I mean, you weren't wrong, Kirk. It
Crazy.
is subterranean because it is below the Earth,
I
technically.
guess, yeah. So cool things, two little facts to finish up here with. One is that they did DNA analysis on the two different sort of species now that we have of coelacanths. And mind-blowingly, even though they look very similar, they believe the DNA diverged in these two species somewhere between 30 and 40 million years ago.
Wow.
Which is mind-blowing. Although if you've been around for 400 million years, 30 million years is like,
that's a blip on the record.
And my absolute...
Well, that's the...
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
That's the thing with these living fossils, or, animals that are supposedly left over from millions of years ago. Like, we don't really know how much they may have changed on the inside, no matter how much they look the same on the outside from the fossil record to now, right?
Yeah, and they have changed some too. Like, we definitely, from looking at the fossils, go, okay, this is a coelacanth. Actually, the coelacanth, interestingly, the fossil was first described about almost exactly 100 years before she discovered the live one from that fisherman. So that's super cool. And my absolute favorite coelacanth fact has nothing to do with this whole story. It has to do with the fish itself. They obviously have a brain cavity where their brain is found.
Right.
98% of their brain cavity is filled with fat.
What?
And only 1.5% of their entire brain cavity is actually filled with brain matter. I don't even know what to make of that. Is it a buoyancy thing? I mean, fat obviously helps you stay buoyant. But imagine if your head was like 98% full of fat. And I'm not saying they're a dumb fish. I mean, like, it's astounding that it's only 1.5% of their entire brain cavity is full of brains. And it's maybe like a zombie protection thing, because they're like, brains. Oh, no, never mind. Coelacanth. Moving on. But
that really put
there's
on
so
the
much
pounds
more about
to the
coelacanths.
zombie.
Obviously, if you check them out, they are super, super cool animals that are really a portal into the past of what life used to be like. Some of the earliest, advanced life on Earth was like so long ago. And it's so cool that they're still here today. And they haven't evolved a lot. You did mention if they have changed. They have gotten bigger over that time period.
Interesting.
But there's not a whole lot of evolutionary pressure on them to change. The habitat they're in is the same habitat it was then. They're doing this, probably just kind of doing the same thing. They don't have a whole lot of reason to change. And so when something works in nature, it just sort of sticks around. It can stick around a long, long time. So
it's a lot of energy
cool
to
animal.
change. So
yeah, coelacanths are pretty awesome.
That's absolutely great. Can you imagine being the fisherman who catches this, just hanging out and like, oh, let's catch I got this giant fish. I have a friend. We'll see what she says.
Yeah, the original sea captain guy who found it, he knew it was something different when he found it. I don't think they were real common off the coast of Africa. And also because they're really deep, so you got to be, getting like long lines down there to catch them and stuff. So I think he knew it was pretty special. They did, sadly, because it was taxidermy, they didn't have the skeleton, and they absolutely needed the skeleton to confirm that it really was a coelacanth. And they didn't get that until many years later when another one was finally caught to really confirm what she had actually found. But now we know that she did find that, and the coelacanths they're back, baby. And they're protected now, a lot of them, because there's not a ton of them out there, but they're a very cool species.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Rachel, you are going to be up after this short break.
All right, let's go. All right. Well, we've been underneath the dirt in the tunnels with
I think the
naked
term
mole
you're
rats
looking for
today.
is subterranean.
Subterranean.
Right.
Yeah.
We were subterranean with the naked mole rats. Then we went further down with a lovely, if slightly horrifying story about a coelacanth. Today, I'm going to take you up. So instead of going down, we're going to go all the way up.
Up? How high?
Space.
I know where we're going.
Space nature.
I know where
We're going to do space.
I already
You know
I
where
think-
we're going?
I know
I have a guess.
Did you go to the same talk? You were there.
No, I have a guess. It's about an animal, isn't
Okay.
it?
No, it is not.
Oh, maybe it's not.
Not an animal.
Okay.
Oh, it's not an animal.
Maybe I'm
So
wrong.
we're going. I think I know the animal you're thinking of, and
Yeah,
we
well,
definitely should
another
talk about
episode,
that
we'll
at
get to
some
that.
point. Yes. All right. So we're going up into space. We're all testing these different. Where scientists and astronauts are testing these absolutely extreme conditions in preparation for both potential Mars habitation of humans, seeing what if we could bring any sort of living creature to Mars, right?
Sure,
or if
sure.
anything could uh,
Survive.
live in
right?
space or survive,
Yeah.
as you do. Now, in 2005, actually, they started with two different species, and I practiced this. The species names were, and you might get an idea about what it is Rhizocarpon geographicum and Xanthoria elegans.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Two of my favorites.
Right. Now, these two species of this organism, I'll use that phrase, went out into space. They sent it out into a capsule. You got it, Kirk.
Sorry. They can't see.
Out.
I'm holding up a sticker that says.
You're holding up a sticker
that says the answer, but I'm not going to give it away.
Yes. They sent out this capsule and then mechanically opened it to outside of the International Space Station, and they opened it up to the atmosphere.
The void.
Or lack thereof. The
lack
vacuum.
of it, yeah.
The lack of atmosphere. So it was in the vacuum of space, exposed to direct ultraviolet rays and radiation of the sun, and exposed to, when it was in the Earth's shadow, negative 20 degrees Celsius, and when it was in the sun, 20 degrees Celsius, which I think is pretty cool.
That's
pretty
colder
cold
than
in general.
Most places.
Right. Now, when they brought it back, it was out and exposed for 15 days in space. And they brought it back in, and they gave it a little bit of water, and totally fine. DNA wasn't damaged at all from all the UV radiation, nothing.
This sounds like some sort of superhero. I know. Most listeners don't know what you're talking about yet, so I'm super curious what they're picturing in their brain.
Right? I really want to know.
We know it's not an animal.
Mm-hmm.
It is not an animal, but it's what's interesting is it's not one organism either. It's two.
Well, yeah, you said two Latin names there.
I did, but each of those two Latin names are actually two organisms.
This kind of ties back into the whole thing earlier about how science likes to put things into boxes and nature doesn't like boxes.
Nature hates boxes.
The concept of a species gets real murky here.
So much. Now, what I'm talking about today is lichen. A lot of us have seen lichen. I love lichen. There's this really fun way to figure out what something is, or whether it's lichen or not, or how to remember it. It's a really fun story. It's Freddy Fungus and Alice Algae took a lichen to each other.
Oh, knee slapper.
Yeah, that was terrible. So a lichen, what it is it's an algae or a cyanobacteria that's in a symbiotic relationship with a fungi, with some sort of fungus. The fungi provides the structure, whereas the algae or the cyanobacteria actually provides the food for both organisms. So with that, even like I said, it's a symbiotic relationship. So that actually allows it to, they're able to benefit with each other. The cyanobacteria will also provide nitrogen that the fungi needs to help create some structure. There's tons of different forms of lichen and ways to identify. I mean, there's over they haven't identified all of them. There's about 20,000 total species of lichen, which is crazy to think about, and they're always identifying more species. Especially since they will grow practically anywhere. They will grow on rocks.
Can you describe for people who can't see what does a lichen look like? Like, how would I know if I've looked at a lichen or seen one?
That's fair. So a lichen. Oh man, a lot of people mistake it with moss. Generally, it's something that is colorful. It could be white, it could be blue or green or orange even. I think it was the Xanthoria elegans. Was actually a bright orange lichen.
Yeah, I probably got. It's a really common one that's probably growing in your yard right now.
Oh, absolutely. So what they are is they're oh gosh, how do you describe lichen?
Can I take a stab at it?
You go for it.
So if you think about maybe you've gone on a hike sometime or been walking around wherever you live and you see a rock or maybe a tree or even a telephone pole and it has a crusty looking patch on it. Mm-hmm. And it could be a kind of a crusty orange patch or a kind of a crusty gray patch. And maybe it's a little flaky looking or a little stringy looking. That's a lichen. They can grow on bare rock. It's kind of crazy.
It's absolutely insane. Like, they can grow on rock. They can grow on, well, yeah, like you said, they can pretty much grow on anything. The crusty kind of look, that's definitely one way that you can, there's 3 different types of growth forms, and one of them is called, I'm not even joking, crustose. Yep. And it's because it looks crusty. So most lichen, especially around where we are, is going to be crustose or fructose. Fruticose?
It's fruticose.
Fruticose.
Everyone always wants to say fruit because we think of fruit, but it's just fruticose.
Frut. Oh, it's because there's dirty. The I after it. But yeah, I wanted to share that they actually, when they brought the lichen back, what happened was they gave it a little bit of water and it went right back to photosynthesizing without any problem. When it was out in the really severe and extreme conditions in space, it actually went dormant, which allowed it to just absorb what was going on and just not necessarily absorb, because these are 2 plant like. Fungi is a weird. We're not going to get into that.
It's not a plant or an animal. It's in its own.
No,
it's a whole other episode.
It's its own thing.
That is another episode.
But they were just fine when they came back in. And once they got a little bit of water, it started photosynthesizing, and they tested the DNA of both species, and nothing was wrong. And they replicated this experiment in 2017 as well, with just algae, rather than going in with lichen. So,
do you know how the algae by itself fared? Did it survive without the lichen?
The algae also survived.
Wow.
No problem. I actually have the abstract in the scientific paper in front of me, and it was a special It was a special species of algae that they find in Norway, and it was part of the lichen Cicernia. Yeah, Cicernia gyrosa.
Gotcha. So it's a algae that is also found in lichen.
Yeah,
I know it's one of the weird things about you can have a species of algae that can grow by itself outside of a lichen. You can have a species of fungus that can grow by itself without any algae in it, and they're separate species. Mm-hmm. But when you put them together into one symbiotic relationship, we call it a different species. When it's really more like a colony, and you can have bacteria growing in there too. So it's really like its own ecosystem. But we're stuck in boxes, so we call them species. But that concept doesn't really it doesn't always apply.
I feel like
not so much.
Human boxes versus nature hating boxes is probably going to be a recurring theme here.
Absolutely.
It might be, yeah.
You know, one of the interesting things with lichens too is there's some speculation, you know, if they can survive space. We know, for example, that we have found meteorites here on Earth that are from Mars. I mean, if a large impact meteorite hits Mars, it can eject pieces of rock into space that can eventually land on Earth, and we have found those. And so then the issue becomes like, scientists started thinking, well, if lichens and some of the stuff or bacteria can survive a trip through space, like how long of a trip in space? And could life actually move from one planet to another in that way? And we have missions that are going on Mars right now that are looking for signs of life. So it's a pretty interesting topic to think about. Where did life start? You know, did it start on Earth, or did it start somewhere else and get seeded here by meteorites falling down to the ground? I mean, it's the more we find out about how things survive in space, the more interesting it gets.
Oh, absolutely. And the study that I was talking about, where they did both the lichen and the algae, the one in 2017, that's when the study was published. But they actually attached both of those organisms to not just expose it to space, but also a simulated a Mars environment. And
Nice.
they did that one for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So that was much higher. And the Mars environment, they actually did better than exposed to just space, which makes sense.
Not too surprising.
When it was not
Sure.
so surprising.
Although Mars is not a nice place to hang out.
No, it is not.
For us.
But yeah, but they did see that there was more DNA damage in the lichen that they studied when it was out in space or in the Mars environment for 18 whole months.
Sure, makes sense.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all that awesome nature information, you guys. We appreciate everybody being here this week.
I'm not over the naked mole rats being 32 years old.
We'll never be over naked mole rats.
No.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.